Ariel was returning from a business trip. She had spent the whole week in a neighboring city attending various conferences, meetings, and sorting through documents. She worked for one of the largest real estate firms. The director always took her on such trips because, in his words, she was the only person he could rely on. "I count on you, Ariel. You won't let me down, will you?" the director, Elliot, asked, each time before the business trip, gently squeezing her shoulder and smiling softly. "Of course, I won't let you down," she replied, and that same evening she packed her suitcase for the trip. Another business trip had passed, and ahead of her were 2 long-awaited days off. She planned how she would spend her free time. Maybe she would visit her parents or invite a friend she hadn't seen in a long time. "The train will arrive at the station in 5 minutes," the dispatcher's announcement sounded. Great, Ariel breathed out and began gathering her few belongings. The train stopped and passengers started coming out of the cars, merging with the crowds of waiting and greeting people. Nobody was waiting for or meeting Ariel. She was on her own, and that arrangement suited her just fine. Taking a deep breath of the heavy air of the train station, she relaxed her shoulders. She grabbed the handle of her small suitcase and headed towards the exit when suddenly someone tugged at her jacket from behind. Ariel frowned in annoyance and turned around. Standing in front of her was a little girl. Her face was red and swollen from tears. Her nose kept twitching, her chin was trembling, and her green jacket was unbuttoned. "Mama," the little girl sobbed. "Mommy, why did you leave me? I got scared. I thought you left. Mama, Mommy." Unexpectedly for Ariel, the girl rushed towards her and hugged her around the waist. The woman was taken aback. Apparently, in her emotional state, the girl had mistaken her for her mother. "Sweetheart," Ariel cautiously moved the girl away from herself. "Listen, are you lost?" "You left, Mommy," the girl cried even harder. "But I'm not your mommy. What's your name?" "Why are you saying that, Mom?" "Listen," the woman addressed the girl more firmly. "I'm not your mom. Where did you see your mom last, and what's your name?" The girl furrowed her brow. Studying the woman's face carefully, she seemed to gradually realize that she was indeed not her mother. "You're not my mom. My mom was there when she left." The girl pointed to the other end of the platform. "After then, she disappeared. Went somewhere." "What's your name?" "Ella." "Listen, Ella. Have you been walking around here for a long time?" The girl shook her head. She appeared to be around 6 years old, no older. "I see. What should I do with you then?" Ariel straightened up and scanned the platform. She couldn't leave the girl alone here. "Let's go inside, and we'll try to find your mom," she said. Ariel found a police station at the train station, but for some reason, it was closed. "All right," she said. "How are we going to find your mom now? What's her name?" "My mom's name is Barbara." "Then let's go to the place where your mom left you and wait for her there, okay?" Ella silently nodded and followed Ariel. They walked to the end of the platform and waited. Ella kept trying to spot her mother, but after an hour, then 3, it yielded no results. Ariel concluded that some irresponsible mother had abandoned her daughter. But why would a mother abandon her child? Ariel asked herself. Ella was a lovely girl. She behaved calmly, didn't complain about tiredness or anything else. It had gotten dark. Ariel felt a terrible fatigue and hunger. Perhaps Ella was experiencing the same, but she didn't say anything about it. They needed to contact the police. Not the one at the train station, of course, since it was closed, but Ariel didn't have the energy for that and couldn't think of anything better than offering Ella to come with her. Ariel kneeled down, and now her eyes were at the same level as Ella's. "Listen, girl, it's already too late, and both of us are tired. Let's go to my place now, and tomorrow we'll try to find your mom again. How does that sound?" At first, Ella looked at Ariel skeptically. Well, why would she go home with a stranger from the train station? But after brief contemplation, she agreed. Well, that's great. Ariel smiled wearily and led the girl towards the parking lot, where her car awaited. "This is my car." Ariel attempted to cheer up Ella because she noticed tears welling up in the girl's eyes again. "Do you like it?" It's beautiful, Ella sniffled. Hey, don't cry. Everything will be fine. We will find your mom and you'll go home with her. All right? Maybe my mom abandoned me. After these words, the girl covered her face with her hands and started crying loudly. Ariel felt her heartache at the sight of such a distressed child. Of course, one couldn't rule out the possibility that the child had been abandoned. The reason behind it, however, remained unclear. A loving mother would surely immediately search for her child and do everything to find them. It could also be that Ella ran away from the train, and her mother realized it too late, but Ella herself didn't mention such a situation. Ariel decided that the first thing she would do in the morning was to contact the police and personally ensure that the child was reunited with her parents. Stop. Your mom couldn't have abandoned you. She loves you, right? Ella nodded uncertainly. That's good. We'll go to the store now, buy something delicious for you, and then we'll eat it and watch cartoons. Upon hearing this news, the girl gradually calmed down. She clearly liked this plan. Now Ariel could drive the car peacefully. It started raining. Amid the quiet sound of the radio and the patter of raindrops on the car window, Ella fell asleep without noticing. She must be terribly tired, Ariel thought. How much time had she spent at the station without her mother? So many questions. Throughout the journey, the woman pondered over what had happened. The more thoughts flooded her mind, the angrier she became at the girl's mother. It was incredibly irresponsible. Ariel herself had never been married. She didn't have any children either, although the opportunity had presented itself more than once. A couple of colleagues from the company had courted her from time to time, but the thought of marriage scared her. She didn't want to lose the freedom she had. She didn't want to depend on anyone. In short, Ariel preferred to be on her own. And now life had thrown this child at her, and she truly had no idea what to do. After almost an hour, Ariel and Ella arrived at the store. The girl was still asleep, and as much as Ariel didn't want to wake her up, she had to do it. Otherwise, the situation could become even worse. Parking near the store's entrance, she turned around and looked at Ella. Now the girl's face wasn't distorted with crying, indignation, or any other emotions. She appeared very peaceful and even resembled a cute little angel. How could anyone abandon such a miracle? Ariel whispered quietly and began to wake up Ella. Hey, sweetie, wake up. Ella opened her blue eyes and immediately started looking around. After waking up, she couldn't immediately remember where she was. Mom? The girl softly tried to call out. Sweetie, your mom isn't here. We've arrived at the store. Remember we came for treats and delicious things? Yes, I remember, Ella said, slightly frowning, as she got up from her seat and looked at Ariel. You look like my mom. You've already mentioned that. Maybe we're wearing similar clothes, right? Ella didn't reply. She just started looking out the window, waiting for the door to be opened. All right, let's go to the store then. Ariel got out of the car, walked around it, and opened the door for Ella. The girl quickly ran outside and stood there, waiting for further instructions. Ariel approached her, extending her hand. However, Ella simply walked beside her. There were only a few people in the store, and closing time was approaching. What kind of treats do you like? Ariel attempted to engage Ella in conversation. She wanted to cheer her up in some way, and convince her that everything wasn't so bad. I like jelly candies, Ariel said. I love chocolate bars. What kind of chocolate bars? Any kind. Mom always used to buy me candies. Listening to Ella's preferences, Ariel placed the sweets into the basket. She had never bought this many treats before, and now felt like some sort of Santa Claus, and also like a mother. It was as if, in a moment, everything had happened so quickly in her life that she had become the mother of this little girl. The feeling was very strange and quite unfamiliar, but not as bad as she had expected. She grabbed cookies, milk, juices, and some milkshakes because she had no idea what the girl specifically preferred. Gradually, Ella started to liven up and occasionally even skipped around, especially near the toys. Listen, do you have a dad? Ariel cautiously asked. I don't have a dad. I've never seen my dad. Mom says he left her when I was still in her belly. I see, Ariel said sadly. Such situations were also one of the reasons why she didn't want to get married. You could get pregnant, hope for a normal family, and then everything falls apart, leaving a broken-hearted woman to carry the child, herself, and the apartment bills on her fragile shoulders. The thought made Ariel grimace. "Do you want anything else?" "No, thank you." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. We already took a lot of chocolates," Ella said, peering into the shopping basket. "All right," Ariel chuckled. "Let's go to the checkout." When Ariel brought Ella to her apartment, it was already late. The girl fell asleep again during the ride, but this time, Ariel didn't want to wake her up at all. She quickly took the groceries inside first and then returned for Ella. Carefully, she picked up the girl, trying not to wake her. She locked the car and slowly walked to the building. Her apartment had a small guest room, but after some thought, Ariel decided not to put Ella to sleep there. The girl might become even more frightened and anxious. The perfect solution was the sofa in the living room. She could lay Ella down there and take a nap in the armchair herself. Two things kept bothering Ariel: the fact that the mother had abandoned her child, and the repeated mention from the child that she resembled her mother. It was strange. It was possible that they only looked alike in terms of clothing, but deep inside, Ariel sensed something fishy. She laid Ella on the sofa, covering her with a blanket, and then proceeded to organize the groceries. The day had been quite heavy and eventful, so she soon fell asleep in the armchair, keeping an eye on the sleeping girl. The next day, Ariel fed Ella breakfast, packed the remaining treats for her, and as planned, headed to the nearest police station. "How long will we be at the police station?" Ella asked, seeing the building ahead. "I don't know, sweetheart," Ariel honestly admitted. Her heart ached at the thought of leaving the poor girl there. She had grown attached to her in such a short time. "Will they find my mom?" Ella asked. "Of course they will," Ariel replied uncertainly. She couldn't know for certain. "All right, we've arrived. Shall we go?" "Let's go." "Promise me you're not scared?" "I promise." "Good." The woman and the girl entered the police station. Ariel explained where and when she found the girl. Ella herself shared the name of her mom and what had happened before she got lost. "My mom just said she would step away for a moment and come back, but she never came back for me." "What does your mom look like? What color is her hair? Her eyes?" Ariel asked. Ella paused for a moment and then silently pointed at Ariel. "My mom looks like Ariel." "It seems that we're just dressed the same as her mother. Maybe we have similar jackets or something else?" Ariel suggested. "I see," the police officer said, making a note on a piece of paper. "And what's your mom's name, Ella?" "Barbara." "Do you know her last name?" Ella shrugged, and there was nothing surprising about it. Many children at her age couldn't remember their last name, or, due to strong emotional experiences, simply forgot and couldn't recall it. "Well, that's fine. Miss Ariel, you can go now," the officer said, addressing the woman. "And you, dear, will be taken care of by another aunt." "Another aunt?" Ella asked, frightened. She looked helplessly at Ariel, tears welling up in her eyes once again. It was impossible to watch all this with a calm heart. Ariel could literally feel her heart bleeding, but this decision was the only right one. Ariel knelt in front of the girl and looked directly into her blue eyes. "Listen, Ella, you'll stay here for a while, and then your mom will come and take you home. Okay? Don't be afraid. Everyone here is good. They won't harm you. Here, take the candies you didn't finish this morning." "I don't want candies. I want you to stay with me, here," Ella cried. Ariel instinctively pulled her closer and hugged her. She ran her hand through the girl's hair, feeling that she didn't want to leave either. "I can't stay here, but your mom will come for you," Ariel whispered. The police officer looked at her and Ella with sympathy, but couldn't do anything about it. The woman couldn't come up with a better solution than making a promise to Ella. "Let's do this," she began. "You're already a grown-up, right?" Ella weakly nodded. "Then you'll stay here for now. If your mom doesn't come back soon, I will come and get you." At that moment, Ariel felt like Ella's mother. Ella had promised to return to her, but she didn't keep her promise. Ariel knew she couldn't take Ella with her, but at least she could visit her. "Do you promise?" Ariel asked. "I promise. And do you promise to behave well and not cry?" "I promise." "That's good. I have to go now. So long." "Goodbye, Ariel." Looking at the girl one last time before leaving, she walked out of the police station, leaving her phone number just in case. This story stirred up a strange feeling in her. She suddenly missed her own parents and felt a strong desire to spend some time with them. So, right after the police station, she headed to their place. Ariel's parents lived on the other side of the city. It would take her about an hour and a half to get there, but what did it matter? She just wanted to see them. After lunch, she stood at her parents' doorstep. "Ariel, what are you doing here?" her mother asked the first thing. "Did something happen?" "No, Mom," the woman smiled. "I just have a day off, so I decided to come and visit you. How are you doing?" "Everything is fine. We're living quietly. You came just in time, as if you sensed it," her mother smiled in response. "Why just in time?" Ariel asked, slightly furrowing her brow as she smiled. "Let's go to the kitchen." Voices could be heard from the kitchen, a male and a female voice. The male voice belonged to her father, who was energetically telling a story. In the other, Sis. Ariel heard her name and almost immediately was stunned. She stood in the doorway to the kitchen like a statue. Her gaze was fixed on the girl sitting at the table, who looked exactly like her. "Barbara?" Ariel forced a smile and embraced her twin sister. "What are you doing here?" "Well, I thought it's been so many years since I visited our parents, so I decided to drop by and see how they're doing." "I see." Ariel nodded briefly. She was still in shock from the encounter. They had a major falling out with her sister once, and they hadn't seen each other for 8 years since then. Barbara seemed unchanged, perhaps just like Ariel herself. "Take a seat, dear," Ariel's mother urged. "Well, Ariel, how's life? Did you get married and have children?" "No, I prefer to remain proudly single." "Oh, she's always like that." Her mother waved her hands behind her back. She always reacted that way to this topic. "And what about you?" Ariel asked. "I've been through one divorce already." Barbara smiled as if it were a trivial matter. "The first one, and not the last." "I see." The conversation didn't go smoothly. Barbara started talking to their parents. She had always been talkative. Ariel silently stirred her tea. This wasn't the family reunion she had expected. Suddenly, Ariel started to wonder, what was Barbara doing in this city in the first place? She lived far away. The woman remembered how Ella kept saying that her mother looked like her. Now these coincidences didn't seem strange anymore. There was clearly some logic behind them. Ariel stared intently at her sister. She needed to get some answers. "Listen, Barbara, how long have you been here?" she asked. "I've been here since yesterday evening," Barbara replied. "How did you get here? By plane, I suppose?" Barbara raised an eyebrow, puzzled by why her sister was asking such trivial questions. "No, I came by train." The puzzle was coming together. If Barbara was married, there was a good chance that she had a child. But then why would Barbara abandon her child, especially in a different city? "I see," Ariel said. "How's work?" Barbara asked. "Great. I also returned from a business trip yesterday," Ariel replied, adding a subtle undertone. "Also by train." Barbara gave her sister a strange look, then looked away and changed the subject. Ariel's doubts were almost dispelled. She decided to talk directly with her sister. They sat at the table for an hour, chatting with their parents about trivial matters until their mother suggested moving to the living room. "You go ahead, and Barbara and I need to talk about something," Ariel warned their parents as soon as they left the kitchen. Barbara gave Ariel another strange look but didn't move from her seat. She stared at her sister expectantly, as if she had already started to guess what the conversation would be about. As soon as their parents left the kitchen, her joyful expression turned rigid and closed off. "You said you arrived by train," Ariel approached the topic. "Yesterday evening?" "Yes." "Well, something strange happened to me yesterday. I got off the train, walking along the platform, and a 6-year-old girl ran up to me, saying that I looked just like her mother. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but then I came here, saw you, and heard your story about coming back." Barbara's face remained expressionless, but Ariel knew her too well. "So you're saying that you got divorced and came here alone?" Ariel smiled. She stood up from the table and leaned against the countertop with both hands. Ariel stared intently at her twin sister because she knew that she was blatantly lying. The relationship between the sisters had always been strained. Barbara's actions regarding the child didn't surprise Ariel. She had always been able to easily let go of things and people if they didn't suit her. Barbara, my dear Barbara, don't forget that I know you very well. You'd better tell me the truth right away. Why did you abandon your child at the train station? Barbara remained silent for a long time. She gazed fixedly at Ariel. Ariel held her ground and continued to stare at her sister. Fine. Barbara finally gave in, throwing her hands up in the air. Fine. I have no idea how, but you figured me out. Yes, I abandoned the child at the platform. I can't believe that the person who found her was you. How could you do such a thing? To a child? Ariel almost shouted. Have you completely lost your mind? You know what, dear? We got divorced with Henry because he cheated on me with the neighbor. He traded me for some young girl. He broke my heart. Ella looked so much like him, and that's why I hated her. I couldn't bear to look at her because I saw him in her, so I decided to abandon that girl at the station. Ariel was ready to strangle her own sister in that moment. She despised her more than ever. She had to restrain her emotions somehow, especially since they were in their parents' home. You're a monster, Barbara. A monster. Nothing else. Ella was crying and begging for her mother. I managed to calm her down somehow, promising her that her mother would be found. So, we're going to the police station right away, where I left her. You'll write a relinquishment of parental rights since you don't want the child. Barbara, a child is not a puppy or a kitten. She's a human being too. Say whatever you want, Barbara hissed. I don't want anything that reminds me of Henry, and I don't care if it's a puppy, a kitten, or a child. Ariel couldn't hold back. She walked up to her sister and slapped her. Barbara looked at her in fear, ready to retaliate, but Ariel wasn't afraid of her at all. Get in my car quickly, Ariel said. Strangely, Barbara obeyed her sister. They said goodbye to their parents, using the excuse of wanting to take a walk, and headed to the police station. Ariel's blood boiled with anger and anxiety. She had no idea what would happen next, but she couldn't leave Ella alone to be adopted by complete strangers. She genuinely felt sorry for the girl. You're a despicable person, Barbara. You always have been. Oh, and you're so kind and good, aren't you? At least I don't abandon my own children to fate. The woman arrived at the police station. They entered, and Ella informed the police officer she had spoken to a couple of hours ago that her mother had been found. I would like to write a relinquishment of parental rights, Barbara calmly informed him. To relinquish? The police officer asked, surprised. Yes, I want to relinquish. Wasn't that clear? Barbara replied. The officer remained silent, then explained where and how the documents needed to be processed. Ella was no longer at the police station. Ariel thought it was probably for the best. It was better for her not to see her mother anymore. Several hours passed before Barbara officially relinquished Ella, and it took several weeks before Ariel was finally able to establish guardianship over her own niece. The girl spent a considerable amount of time in a children's home waiting for her mother, but after that day, Ariel visited her every day, bringing her favorite chocolate. You understand that you'll be living with me now, Ariel once tried to explain to Ella. But where's my mom? Your mom, she's very busy, and she asked me to take care of you. I see, Ella said thoughtfully. Well, I like you. It's fun with you. Ariel smiled. For the first time in a long while, she was glad that she wasn't alone anymore, and that fate had brought her and Ella together. Finally, she could experience what every woman probably feels at a certain moment in her life. The desire to care for someone other than herself, to give someone her love, and to dedicate all her free time to them. After Barbara wrote the relinquishment and dealt with all the paperwork, she disappeared just as she had 8 years ago, leaving no trace. Over time, Ella adjusted to the fact that she now lived with Ariel. She had her own room, was taken care of, and everything was done to ensure she lacked nothing. In short, the girl was happy, and it was evident from the sparkle in her joyful eyes. You know, she said to Ariel one day, I've never felt as good at home as I do with you. Those words brought tears to Ariel's eyes, and she hugged the girl tightly. I feel the same way, darling. I feel so blessed to have you by my side. Blessed to have you by my side. Blessed to have you by my side. Blessed to have you